Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. I am blessed to have one of my dearest and closest friends, Trey Dixon, who's the executive director of True North Ministries, a men's ministry here in Oklahoma City. And Trey, we've been friends for, I don't know, a decade now, which is crazy to say. But I am excited to hear and to share your story with everybody out there and how you guys live with intentional direction and a family identity. Trey, thanks for being on here, man. It's great to see you as always.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Derek. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so for somebody who's not familiar with True North, tell us a little bit about what True North is and what True North does.
Yeah, so True North is a non-denominational men's ministry. And so we really help guys. What our kind of vision and mission is we help guys walk, engage, and live. And that just means walk with God, engage in the larger story, that story, instead of just living for ourselves, really living for God and something bigger than ourselves, and then living free and not through the constraints of this world, but truly being able to live free in Jesus. And we do that through something called Base Camp. That's kind of our hallmark event. Base Camp is an amazing weekend. We get guys out of the city. We kind of go to different camps all over. We get out in nature. We do a ton of fun stuff, shoot guns, paintball, zip line, high ropes, go-karts, a testosterone fest all weekend. But the time with God is absolutely life-changing. And so, man, it's Base Camp and True North has just been such an integral part of our life and our story over the last decade. So it's been awesome to watch God move through it.
Oh, dude, I know that. I mean, I know that. I've been blessed to be a part of that story and to watch you and your family grow and flourish and to watch True North as an organization and a ministry grow and develop and just your impact in the lives of men and therefore in the lives of families is, I don't think we will see the full impact until we're on the other side of heaven. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know, but tell us about your family. Tell me about your family. What's the structure? What do you guys like? Fill it in.
Absolutely. So my wife and I have been married. This July will be 26 years. And I know we don't look nearly old enough, and I appreciate that. But yeah, so we're getting ready to have our 26th wedding anniversary, which is crazy. We have three boys, although they're not really boys anymore. Our oldest son, Zach, is 21. He's getting married to an amazing young lady this summer. He's a pastor, actually the youngest adult pastor in the largest church in America. And so, I mean, he's the youngest pastor in their history. And so we're so incredibly proud of him. We then have a 17-year-old Luke, who's a senior in high school, who is just on fire for God. Man, I could go on for the next hour, some of the crazy things that he's doing following Jesus. And then we have the baby, Luke, who's actually bigger than all of them. I say
not
baby
a
because
baby, right? Not actually a baby at all. Yeah.
He is. We warned our other two for a long time. We're like, baby brother is going to end up being a lot bigger than both of you, and he'll be able to kick your tail one day. And as a freshman at 15, he's basically there. So it's fun to watch him. It's always an adventure. Always, wanting to shoot something, blow up something. How fast can we go? Jump something, whatever it is. They're just a ton of fun all the time.
Those are the great adventures of boys, right? Of young men. Well,
Definitely.
tell us. Okay, so as the Dixon family, do you guys have a family identity or a family character or characteristic that you all rally around?
We do. So, man, our journey with Family ID, my wife and I went through this with a kind of a home group, like a life group that we were in. And it was real. And this was years ago. This was probably 9, 10 years ago. And it was really good. Like it was really powerful. And we got it. Like it clicked with my wife and I of going, we desperately need this. What we didn't do at that time, because our kids were quite a bit younger then, we didn't really involve them. It was kind of something that my wife and I did, and it was directional in our hearts and gave us some intentionality, which was really good. But where it got even better was about 6 years ago, 5 years ago, we sat through a family ID workshop with our boys. We actually brought them and sat through it together as a family. And that was a pivotal point. our oldest son actually was almost in tears.
Hmm.
We left and we were in the car, and he was in tears and wouldn't really talk. And we didn't fully understand. We got home, and my wife was talking to him, and he said, I was really convicted of how poorly I've treated my brothers and
Hmm.
that I haven't led them well. And what I'll tell you, what that's culminated and what that's turned into, our oldest son, when he actually, the day before he was doing his final interview to become a pastor, there was some stress and anxiety. And here he
Yeah.
is, 20 years old, and he's going for this, adult job. I mean, he's going to become a pastor. And he came over, he, texted my wife and I and said, hey, would you guys pray over me? We said, absolutely, please come over. We'd love to. Well, we hear him come in the front door. We're in our room and we're waiting for him to come in, and he doesn't. A little more, and we're thinking that's odd. So I go outside to kind of see where he's at, and I hear down the hall. I go down the boys' hallway, and I look down the hallway and I see him on his hands and knees with his head bowed, and my other son, our middle son, the younger one, praying over him.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it
that's powerful.
just was, I mean, such a beauty. I mean, I like want to tear up now, even hearing it, thinking back to that, but such a beautiful picture of what family idea of really bringing what family is. And one of the things that Greg has shared that meant so much to us and to our boys is that, friends may come and go. Even parents are going to die one day. Kids are going to move out. At least we pray to God that they're going to move out one day.
One down, two to go.
That's right, exactly.
Right.
Your siblings are always there. That's actually the longest relationship. And I had never thought about that before. My wife and I even said we were high school sweethearts. We've been together for a long time. But guess what? I was around my siblings even before her.
Mhm.
They were in my life before she was. And I had never thought about that. And when we kind of learned that and our boys heard that, it really gave a new perspective. That is theoretically the longest relationship in your life. And it's one that ought to be fostered and taken care of really, really well.
Yeah, no, I do. That's powerful. That's powerful to hear. So what did you see? Okay, so the first time you went through it, your eldest, Zach, was 10 or 11. And then the next time you went through it, he was mid-teens, 15, 16, right?
Exactly.
And that's when he got it. So how did you guys live that out? Because at that point you had a middle teenager, you had Luke was preteen or just turned.
12,
And
13 ish.
okay,
Yeah, he would have
okay,
been 12, 13 ish.
okay. And then you had Ethan, who was a preteen. So
9, 10. Yep.
what did you do? How did you and Amy live that out? I mean, what did you do with that?
So, being real candid, it's not something that we say on a regular basis, like this is our family idea and this is our
Yep.
mission, but we know it. And the whole idea is that we live it out. In the verse, actually, the very first time that we went through it, the verse that God gave me is kind of our family motto, was Ephesians chapter 6, verses 19.
Mm.
And Paul says, and also for me, that the words may be given to me in opening my mouth boldly to proclaim the mystery of the gospel. And what was really unique about that, when God first gave me that verse, it has nothing to do with family.
Mm-hmm.
Like that wasn't, it's not about loving, it's not husbands loving your wives and, wives respecting your husbands, or it wasn't what I expected. But yet what that verse has been for our family is simply this: with Amy and I living out our faith and modeling it for our kids and boldly proclaiming the gospel. I mean, I've been in full-time ministry for almost 7 years now. The boys have seen that. They saw me go from a secular
Yep.
job to ministry. They see couples regularly coming into our home and us praying over them, to the point where our boys, and literally this has happened on numerous occasions, where their friends' parents have been going through divorces or separations or affairs, and they've actually reached out to their parents and said, hey, you ought to meet with my mom and dad.
Yeah,
And so
right.
they've seen us live that out, and now our boys are living that out. So as my son's getting married this in June, they wanted a wedding venue, and specifically in a way so that they could give the gospel message at their wedding. He says, if we're coming together and Jesus is going to be a part of this, we want to share the gospel. My 17-year-old Luke, like I said, he's a senior in high school. He's probably led over 500 kids to the Lord
Mm.
at this point in his life already. He's been all around the country preaching at different youth conferences. And his heart and his goal is just to go and share the gospel with everyone. And so I look back at what God gave us 10, 11 years ago, and it had nothing to do with family.
Yep.
It had everything to do with family. It was, what did we want our family to be about? And we wanted our family to be about preaching the gospel. And God has been so faithful of bringing that to us.
Dude, I absolutely love that. So that verse, the verse that I memorized early in high school was a different translation. And it said, pray for me so that whenever I open my mouth, words may be given to me that I may share the mystery of the gospel. And I'm with you. That's not a verse on how you do family, but instead that's a verse on what a family should do. And so what I'm hearing you say is, hey, you as Dixons, whenever you open your mouth, you're going to proclaim the gospel. And whether that's at a wedding, whether that's on the stage, or I'm sure whether that's you at True North, right? So how have you seen that come out, or how have you lived that out through your role as executive director and really one of the founders of True North?
Yeah, so that's something that when God called me 7 years ago to come full time, to become the full time executive director, man, didn't feel worthy, didn't feel adequate, felt completely unequipped. Never saw myself, as a pastor or a ministry leader. But what I love about it is God sees in us who we often, when we don't see in us. And even though I felt completely inadequate, God's more than enough. And being able to trust in him, to walk with him, and seeing God kind of work through that and move through us. And now my wife and I mean, our heart is to help couples. Like, that's our mission specifically, as couples that are just struggling in marriage, whether it's affair recovery, whether it's, we're about to get divorced and this is our last ditch effort. We kind of enjoy the really nasty ones, the ones that are really struggling. That's kind of where we thrive. That's where God has called us. And that was our story. And so being able to share the hope of Christ. And one of the things that I share with fathers, quite often, I share with men in general, is, I'll ask men. As a matter of fact, one of our events we just had last weekend,
Mhm.
I asked a room full of men. I said, how many of you men in here, if we're being completely honest, being completely transparent, you would say that you are unequivocally the spiritual leader of your home? And about a third to half raised their hands.
Right.
And I'll
Right.
tell you, I've asked that to groups of 10. I've asked that to groups of 3 and 4,000. And every time it's the same. It's roughly a third to half. And I tell them, I say, now, those of you that didn't raise your hand, no shame, no guilt, no condemnation. But what I want you to hear, you are the spiritual leader.
You are, right? You are.
You are the
Surprise.
spiritual leader.
Surprise.
Not because you're the most godly. And what you were probably thinking in your heart was, my wife's the one who's praying with the kids. She's the one that's, maybe reading the Bible with them. She's the one that's taking them to church. But what I want men to hear, that doesn't mean you're not the spiritual leader. You're still leading spiritually. The question is, where are you leading?
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual leaders lead their families away from God every day. They lead their families away from God every day. Spiritual leader does not mean the most godly. Spiritual leader means the husband and the father. And so when men can understand that, and the reason why that's so important in family is because it's not about you telling your kids what to do. It's about you walking it out, living it out, and showing them by example how to live for Christ.
Mm.
That is the spiritual leader that God wants you to be, and that our families are desperate and hungry for us to be.
Oh, that's great, man. When you're saying that, I'm hearing, hey, you are the spiritual leader, not necessarily because of what you do or don't do, but because it's your position that you're in. It's your
That's
position
right.
that you're in. I feel the same way of, hey, does your family have a family identity? Well, the truth is, it does. Even if you have not intentionally created it, you have an identity. It just might not be, not you, Trey, but a family might not have an identity that they want. It just accidentally created an identity, and it might be something of mess and frustration and irritation, something that they don't want. But guess what? It is an identity. And that's what we have to be intentional about is where are you leading your family spiritually, and what identity are you creating? Okay, so for you and Amy, you have three, I was going to say boys, but like you pointed out, they're not boys anymore. You have three phenomenal young men that have come, one's come out of your family, two more are growing there. Surely you guys have some secret sauce, right? Something that you guys did that maybe no other families are doing, or something you did that every family should do to create young, godly men who love the Lord and live it out. What is it? Share the secret sauce with the rest of us so that we can do it as well.
So one thing that I try to share with guys, and I've had a lot of men that have come to me over the last several years and said just that. What's your advice? What's your secret sauce for raising up these young men? And really what I tell them, it's not a secret sauce of what I'm pouring into them. The secret sauce is what I'm allowing Christ to pour into me. Because in order for me to be the father that I need to be to lead them the right way, I first have to be the right husband. Because I truly believe our two greatest admonitions as fathers, one, to lead our kids to the Lord, two, is to show them what a God-honoring marriage looks like, because marriage is a picture of our relationship with Christ. And when Paul says, love your brides as Christ loves the church, show me a higher calling. Show me something that is more significant than loving my bride as Christ loves me. I mean, that's complete agape. That is unselfish. That is sacrificial. And my boys have to see that. They have to understand, because that's how they're going to learn about covenant. That's where they're going to learn about commitment. That's where they're going to learn about all the things sacrifice and sacrificial living. And so my boys know their mom comes before them, and doesn't mean I don't love them. What it means is they know she's above them. But in order for me to be the husband that I need to be, in order to be the father I need to be, I've got to first be that husband. But in order to be that husband, I have to first be a good son to our Heavenly Father. And so, man, the best piece of parenting advice I can give, you have to focus on your heart. Man, as the mom, as the dad, whatever it may be, your relationship with God has to absolutely be first. And as a counselor, because I do marriage and individual counseling,
right?
I see people in every day that, tell me about your normal lives. And well, it's consumed with the kids and their activities. And those aren't bad things. But what happens is those things end up taking place over the marriage, and often even over God. We're traveling to go to a soccer game every Sunday, but we're not going to church. We're not spending quiet time. We're so busy with practices. What we're doing is we think we're being good parents, but we're actually putting the kids over our marriage and over God. What I want to encourage you is that's not being a good parent. That's not actually modeling what they need the most. What they need most is, what does it look like to serve God in every part of our life, in our home, in our marriages, to put God first. And then after that, then all those other things begin to just fall into place. And so, not that sports, not that those things are wrong. I'm not saying that. Our boys have played everything. I've coached just about everything, which is scary because I'm a horrible coach. That's why none of my boys are professional athletes. But at the end of the day, they've got to see you living it out and walking it out. And there's times my wife and I have said, hey, this time is for mom and I, or this time, frankly, we're going to go serve some other couples. We're going to go do some things. And they know that. They know that those things are significant and important. And we bring them along with us. We try to go serve as a family. And we've done family mission, different things locally where we've gone, done a number of different things. But they've got to see it walked out, what our faith looks like, boots on the ground.
I love that, man. So you saying that reminds me of a few things. So Andy Stanley, who I'm a big fan of, and a pastor out of Atlanta, he had a whole parenting series, and the first message out of that parenting series was, how do we raise young adults into having their own faith in the midst of teenage years and college years and young 20s, because people of that age right now are walking away from the faith in staggering numbers. So what's the most effective thing? And he said exactly what you did, is that, well, unfortunately, it's not more VBS or more sports, or it's not a better kids program or middle school program at a church, not knocking those things at all, but it is a healthy marriage at home and parents who live out their faith every day.
That's right.
And we have ministry partners that help promote that. Ministry partners like Homes Devoted, and Drive Faith Home and Faith at Home. That's all they focus on, is making sure that parents and families are living out their faith. Therefore, that's what creates those strong faith foundations, those peers that go down deep, so that when children grow up through teenage and college years, they have a strong faith that they can stand on. And I'm so proud of you and Amy for doing that for your three guys. I know they'll be walking out their faith for a long time because of that foundation that you've established in your family by what you do. Okay, Trey, before we jump off, if we didn't even talk about biblical counseling, which is another way, right, that the gospel just pours out of your mouth whenever you open it, every day, all day long, as people come into your office, and you walk them closer to God for spiritual healing first. And then, like you were just saying, living out that healing in their relationships here on earth. But if somebody wanted to get in contact with you or connect with True North or True North's biblical counseling, how do they do that?
Probably the best way is you can send an email to info, just info at truenorth.live. Info at truenorth.live. Let us know if there's anything, if there's resources, if you're looking for a group. We've got hundreds of men's groups, everything from pornography recovery to guys just sharing, to how to do in-depth Bible studies, all kinds of various things. You can also go to our website, truenorth.live. There's all kinds of information there. We can get you the information about counseling, about base camp, all the various resources that we have to help you in your relationship with Christ so that you can walk, engage, and live.
Love it, man. Love it. Thank you for joining us today. It's been an honor and a privilege. And since you and I have been hanging out in a men's group for a decade now, I'll see you here in the next couple of weeks. So
sounds great. Thank you, Derek. And thank you, Family ID, for everything you do.
Hey, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure and honor. Okay, buddy. Have a great one. We'll see you next time.
See ya.